So here we are. Again, it's July 14th, 2017, and this is going to be the 3-year update of building the Zip. You know, I remember on the 2-year update thinking, oh God, 3 years. 3 years isn't going to happen. It's going to be done. Well, here we are, 3 years in. It's still not done. But like I've said several times, that doesn't bother me. It's going to take as long as it takes, and I don't care. The good news is I can see the light at the end of the tunnel now. It's not very far off. And while it will be a stretch to get it in the water this summer, it's possible. It's very possible. It's very doable. That's my goal. Hopefully we'll achieve that. But again, same thing. I've made a list of all the things I wanted to talk about so I didn't miss them. Some of the stuff we've talked about in the past, some of it we haven't. Let's go over the most obvious thing on building the Zip, and that's always going to be cost. Currently, I'm in the Zip $8,800, $8,805 to be exact. Finished, I'm anticipating around $10,000. So you know, we're $1,200 away from that. That's just a guess, but based on the amount of work that's left, that's a very accurate guess. That's pretty close. I think right around $10,000 to build. That's pretty average. Again, for a Zip, that's pretty average. There have been some built for much less. There have been some built for more, but you know, $9,000-$10,000 is about average for a Zip. So something that I've talked about, not 100% specifically, but I've kind of danced around the subject unintentionally, it just never came up, was the relationship of cost and labor. As labor goes up, cost generally goes down, and vice versa. As cost goes up, labor goes down. And I have two very, very specific areas that I can point to demonstrate this. This month I'm working on the stainless for the cutwater. I'm probably about 40-50% done with that. But that's a great example. I'm doing all of my stainless, my sheet stainless work myself, i.e. the cutwater, both the transom bands, the motor well cutout cap. I'm doing all that myself. I would say in materials to build them, I might have, to build all 4 pieces, I might have $115, $120 in it. That's for the sheet stainless, the screws for it, that's consumables as far as grinding stones, flap wheels, jigsaw blades, all consumables and materials, maybe $120 to build all 4 pieces. However, that's very cheap in my opinion for 4 pieces, but they'll probably be 30 to 40 hours in manufacturing them, in making them myself. Whereas if I had paid someone to build them for me, the labor would be non-existent. I wasn't building them, so I'd save 30, 40 hours of labor there. However, the cost would be substantially higher because I can imagine there's no way that a company could build 4 custom stainless pieces to fit your boat for $120. I would guess $400 to $500 probably. That's just a guess. So there's a classic example. As cost goes down, labor tends to go up. Another great example of that is going to be the outboard motor. I bought my outboard used and non-running for $300. Really good deal, but non-running. So to make it run, it cost me $5. Obviously the magnet came loose in the flywheel. Easy fix, $5. So $305, we have a running outboard. At that point, I went ahead and coughed up the cash to finish all of the preventative maintenance and tune-up stuff necessary for a used outboard. We changed the lower unit oil, replaced the impeller and gaskets, carb rebuild kit. So all told, in the Zip outboard, I think I have just shy of $600. I think that's very, very reasonable for an outboard. So I have roughly 40 hours in the outboard, but only $600. Versus, let's say perhaps you didn't have the skills or the equipment or tools or knowledge to repair an outboard, and your only option is to go buy a new outboard. Well, you shaved 40 hours off of your build time because you didn't have to repair a used outboard. However, your costs skyrocketed because you went up $6,000 for a new outboard. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how labor and costs are related. Again, the more labor you're willing to do yourself, the less expensive the boat is going to be overall. And vice versa, the less labor you do yourself, the more expensive the boat's going to be. So, cost is a very relative term, and I've gone over this in the past some. If you don't care about the outcome, if you're just in it to make a boat that floats and go out and have fun, and it can be done cheap, really cheap. If you don't care about bright sides and you're just going to fiberglass it and paint the hull, you can build it very cheap. Or, on the other end of the spectrum, if you want a bright finish and all this stainless work and beautiful deck planking, it's going to cost more. So really it's up to the builder to decide how much, what your overall goal is, the outcome of your boat, how you want it to look, how you're going to use it, and what you're willing to spend to get it there. It's a choice. It basically comes down to a choice. What's your end goal? What do you desire? And that's going to drive your cost of the boat. Obviously, everybody wants a show quality boat for $200. Let's be real. Let's be realistic about it. It's not going to happen. But, I went into this knowing I was going to spend roughly $10,000 to $14,000. It was going to take as long as it took. I didn't care. And I had the overall look that I wanted, in my head. I wanted bright sides. I wanted a beautiful plank deck with the white stripes, a classic look. I wanted the stainless work. I wanted the white interior. I wanted the gauges a certain way. So, I kind of had all this worked out in my head and a rough idea about how much time it was going to take and roughly how much it was going to cost. Well, obviously, my time frame is wrong because we're at year 3. Here we are. But hours-wise, I'm about on track about where I thought I'd be. So now that we've gone over that, let's talk about some of the hours. This is where, I've talked about this in the past, and this is where it may make a little more sense to people. We currently have 734 and a half hours into the Zip. Most Zips take between 500 and 700 hours. On the low side, I'd say 300 to 500. On the high side, 900. I'm going to be on the higher side of that again because I'm building my own stainless, because I put a monster stereo in this thing, and there's all kinds of added time to run the bigger cable, to run all the wiring, to mount the amp, to build mid and tweet mounts, to wire all of it, to build the subwoofer box and wire the subs. So there's a large amount of time in the stereo to build it and install it that most builders aren't going to have. So let's talk about hours, right? Let's say finished we have 735 hours. That's not accurate. Let's say finished we have 850 hours into the boat. That's just a guess. Should be fairly accurate. 850 hours into the boat. Now this is where the labor part comes into it. Let's say I were to get paid my standard hourly rate at work, right? At 850 hours, that is $18,700 in labor, right? $18,000 in labor. That's at my standard rate. Now, mind you, none of the work on the Zip is done, at 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's not like I'm doing this Monday through Friday. So in my opinion, this is all overtime hours. This is all done after hours at work or on my weekend. Now, if we were to take that same 850 hours and multiply that by my overtime costs, my standard overtime rate at work, you're looking at $28,000 in labor. That doesn't include materials. That's not the $8,800 we're in the boat right now. That's just labor. So on the low side, $18,700 in labor. On the high side, $28,000 in labor. So you add on to that my estimated cost to finish the boat, which is another $1,200 from where we are now, roughly $10,000. You're looking at a total into the boat for materials and labor. On the low side, $28,700. On the high side, $38,050. So that's materials and labor. So when I've talked about this in the past about building boats to make money, and people said, oh well, you got to consider a new boat is this much, a new boat. Okay, so let's look at the total cost of materials plus my labor just to be paid for the work I've done. Is anybody on the planet gonna spend $28,000 to $38,000 for a 14-foot wood boat? Very, very unlikely. Vintage restored Chris Crafts go, low 20s to high 20s. Depending if it's a rare one, yeah, they'll go up from there. There's just your average, in good condition, Chris Craft is going for about 20, 22. Do I honestly think that I'm going to that somebody's going to pay $28,000 to $38,000 for my homemade wood boat? Very, very unlikely. So then, what you have to do basically, if you were going to sell this, is throw your labor away. Throw your labor away and just go off of materials. $10,000. Let's say finished boat, 10 grand in materials. Do I think I could sell the boat for more than $10,000? Probably. There's a likely chance. I've seen Glen-L Zip sell for 18, 19 that didn't have all of the features. Quality-wise, we're equal, I would say, but didn't have all the features this boat has. Sell for 18, 19. That's pretty good. So, yes, I think in the end you would be able to get the materials out, plus recoup some of your labor. There's no way you're going to break even, And again, I knew that going into it. This boat I'll never sell. It's not for sale. It will never be sold. Unless I get a phone call from George Clooney tomorrow saying that he'll buy it for 200 grand when it's finished. Okay, it's yours, out the door. Let's be realistic here. The chances of that happening are very, very slim. But mind you, if somebody wanted to pay me some ridiculous amount for it, I wouldn't say no. I can build another boat, and if it means paying off my house for 3 years worth of work on a boat, sure, you bet. I'm a realist, let's be honest. But the plan is not to sell the boat. Chances are George Clooney's not calling me. Having said that, I knew that going into it, it's not a moneymaker. I didn't plan on building it for an investment. It's my forever boat. It's my toy boat. It's something I'll pass down to my kids. It'll be around. Fortunately, where's some wood? So long as everything goes according to plan, it'll be around long after me. So anyhow, I wanted to talk about some of that. So, those of you that have said, have you priced a new boat lately? Your boat's going to be worth so much more than that. I have. I've priced 16-foot Alumacrafts with a 40 horse and a trailer. They're going for $18,000. I'd like to think that this is a better looking boat than one of those. So yeah, I may make, who knows, if I wanted to sell it, $17,000, $18,000. I'd more than cover the materials to build it, but I sure as heck wouldn't cover materials and my labor to break even. Again, not for sale. Don't ask. It ain't happening unless you're George Clooney. So moving on, I've said this a lot. I still don't really feel like a woodworker. Yeah, I've got a wood boat. It's almost done. Still really don't feel like a woodworker. But thank you to all my polite subscribers and viewers that comment, you're a great woodworker, whatever. I just do my best. So speaking of, not being a woodworker, another thing that I've invested in, and I've added the cost to the zip or tools as I go along. Again, my disc sander, compound miter saw, band saw, the table saw I built, the router with bits. You know, there's about $600 in tools that I bought during the zip build, and I've included that cost into the boat. So if you were a woodworker or you already had these tools, there's another $600 you can shave off the cost of the boat because you already have the tools. I didn't. So let's talk about some weird things, some things that I've done differently on my zip that most people don't do, most builders don't do. One of those is the ply joint, where my side planking and my bottom planking meet. This joint right behind me here, it's kind of hard to see. That joint, they say, you know, in the Glen-L book when you're building this thing, the instructions that come with it, they say to stagger your side joints should not be in the same position relative to your bottom joint. They should be staggered. I didn't do that. They're in a straight line all the way across the boat. They're exactly in line with one another from the bottom to the sides. They are backer blocked. Again, there's the chine, shears, the keel, all sorts of other structures that connect the two. I'm not even slightly worried about strength. But that's something most builders don't do. They don't align those joints. Smoke time. So that's one weird thing I did that most builders don't do. Am I worried that it's going to compromise the structural integrity of the hull? Absolutely not. It's going to be totally fine. You can bash this thing on waves all day and it's not going to crack in half and sink. Another weird thing I did, that's just me being weird. I have no drain plugs at the bottom of my transom to drain out water. Absolutely none. That's weird. Most boat builders put those in there. And that just goes back to me being really, really anti any hull penetrations, as few as possible, especially below the waterline. That's asking for potential leaks, rot, and failure. And I refuse to put drains in the transom. One of my good friends ribs me about it constantly. Drill any holes in your boat? Nope. Not going to do it. Not going to happen. I'll run dual bilge pumps, and at the end of each trip, when I get it back here into the garage, I'll drop the seat, I'll reach in with a towel, I'll hand mop any water if there is back at the back of the boat, mop it out by hand. I'll leave the seat down and probably put a little tiny fan in there just to circulate air for a few days to dry it out. It's worth going the extra mile to hand dry it out to me. It's worth having that extra little bit of work at the end of each trip than potential rot. That probably, in all actuality, would never happen. You know, not in my lifetime. But again, I'm just nervous about it. I'm nervous about rot, and I don't want 3+ years of work to go shit the bed because, you know, I didn't get a hole sealed good enough after running the boat for 5 years. You know, if this thing doesn't make it 15 years, I don't know if building it was worth it. If it just rots out. So that's something else. No drain plugs in the transom. No fiberglass. Glen-L recommends, and most all builders use a fiberglass weave. Fiberglass fabric, and they cover the exterior of the hole in it and then wet it out with epoxy resin, and it basically disappears. You wet it out with epoxy resin, 2 or 3 coats, and it disappears. And it's very important that I stress this a lot. Glen-L again recommends doing that. I didn't. There is no fiberglass anywhere on my boat. The reason they recommend it, however, is not for strength. I recently got a newsletter from Glen-L that talked about this exact thing. And again, it's not recommended for strength. It adds no notable strength to a hull. None. Really? The only thing it adds is additional waterproofing, and the main reason people fiberglass is abrasion resistance. i.e. if you're beaching your boat, if you're dragging it on and off the trailer, you whack something in the water, it adds abrasion resistance. That's the number one reason to fiberglass the outside of your hull. Well, I'm sure as hell not going to be beaching my boat. Not going to happen, ever. I may anchor it in 2 or 3 foot of water on a beach and get out, but I'm not running her up on the sand or the rocks, ever. Is it possible I'll whack a submerged floating log? Sure, yeah, that's possible. But it would be possible regardless. And I'm not going to winch my boat onto the trailer. I'm going to back my trailer deep enough into the water that the boat floats on and off. I can float it clear up to the bow stop, hook my winch line on it, and then drive out. So I won't drag the boat on or off the trailer. It'll be floated on or off. So I really have no, in my opinion, no need for additional abrasion resistance. Now I have 3 coats of epoxy on the outside of the hull, 2 coats of primer, 2 coats of white, and 2 coats of blue below the waterline. So I have 9 coats of waterproofing below the waterline. I have no interest in additional waterproofing. It's plenty waterproof, believe me. So the 2 main reasons for fiberglassing really don't interest me. I have no need. Now, in my opinion, no matter how good a job you do fiberglassing and wetting out, if you get in the right light, in my opinion, you will see that weave. It's very, very, very transparent. And 95% of the people who will walk by a fiberglassed natural wood hull aren't going to see the weave. They're not going to see it. But I can. If you get in the right light, you can see it. That doesn't appeal to me. A lot of people only fiberglass up to the boot stripe or the waterline. That would have been a great idea. And in hindsight, maybe I should have done that. You know, time will tell. We'll find out. But I don't feel bad for not fiberglassing. And the main reason is I've seen several boat builders who wanted bright natural wood sides but messed up on the fiberglass to the point that they had to paint the hull. And that was my number one reason for not fiberglassing, was because the potential, although it may be slight or low, the potential for messing up and ruining the overall look of what I wanted the boat to be was enough to stop me from fiberglassing. Is that a mistake? I don't know. It's my boat. I built it the way I wanted. So I attained the look I wanted. I'm not worried about abrasion. I'm not worried about hull integrity. I'm not worried about waterproofing. So I didn't see the benefit in fiberglassing. You may. Again, it's your boat. Build it how you want. So that's something else weird that I did. I'm still a young guy. I grew up building lowriders. Another weird thing I did is I have a very large stereo in this boat. Loud. It's very, very loud. That's not a normal thing. I don't know of any other Zip or any other Glen-L boat, for that matter, that has a stereo even remotely comparable to this one. So that's my lowrider days and my kids still coming out in me. It's got a banging stereo. So that's something else that's kind of weird. Again, I've talked about this before, but I may end up auto clear coating. That was my original plan. It's still up in the air. That's still the direction I'm leaning. But I know of maybe two other Zips that used automotive clear coat for their exterior final clear. That's also not a normal thing. Most people would varnish for a natural bright finish anyhow. And finally, another weird thing, because I am, like I've talked about in this video, because I'm deathly afraid of penetrations in the hull, especially below the waterline, my transom bands are 3/4 of the screws, 7/8 of the screws in it are dummy screws. They're fake. The only 2 that hold it onto the hull are clear up at the shear line, way away from the water. The transom bands will actually stick to the sides of the boat with 3M VHB double-sided tape. It's a forever tape. You put them on there, they're not coming off. But that's just me being weird again and not wanting hull penetrations. That's another thing most people don't do. They just screw it to the sides of the boat. And again, you know, there's boats that have been out 20 years, still running fine. It's just me being paranoid. So that's another weird thing, you know. But I wanted to go over some of the differences of my Zip or my Glen-L build versus most others. You know, those are some of my weirdness. So let's talk about the experience of boat building. Here we are, 3 years in. I'm still having fun. 3 years in, this is still incredibly fun. It's starting to, honestly, it's starting to wear on me. This is a very labor-intensive, long project, but it's still fun. Still having fun doing it. And I'm still learning things. Every month, I learned something new. Last month and the previous month was varnish. Never done varnish before in my life. In fact, I was a little leery of it. I was kind of worried about it. And now I love it. Varnish is amazing. It's beautiful. It's easy. It looks fantastic. It's such a high gloss. Love varnish. Never done it before. Had to learn how to do it. So 3 years in, I'm still learning. And I love that about this project. So, you know, this project is just, it's by far, it's not the longest project I've ever done in my life. There have been others, but it is by far the longest project that I've worked on steadily. I've had other projects that were 5-year projects, but I'd work on them once a month, maybe not at all for a month or two, and then come back to them. So yeah, it took 5 years, but it wasn't as labor intensive. I wasn't working on it as often or kind of driving a schedule to get it done, you know. So again, yeah, this is by far the longest consecutive steady project I've ever worked on in my life. So again, lots of reasons I do these videos, but I really, really enjoy it when people comment on my Zip build. You know, your videos inspired me to build a boat. I've said this in the past. I still, every time I hear that or read that in the comments, I couldn't be more proud. That just, again, that makes me so incredibly happy, because ultimately that's the goal of these videos, is to show people you are more than capable. Any single one of you, every single one of you watching this video are more than capable of building this exact boat equally as good or better than I am. I promise you. When I started building the Zip, I watched every single Glen-L video known to man. And I even remember commenting on a couple of those videos, and I commented back to a guy on my last video about this. I said pretty much the same thing he said to me. Man, I hope mine turns out, you know, half as nice as yours did. My reply to his comment on that last video was, I bet yours will turn out better. And that's the truth. So again, I love when people comment, hey, your video inspired me to build my boat, and this is what I'm working on, or you know, your videos inspired me to whatever, build, repair, fix, work on a boat, build a boat from the ground up. That's ultimately my goal, is that you go to Glen-L, buy a set of plans, and build your own boat, and you're gonna surprise yourself. I promise you that. This boat has been one of the most enjoyable, relaxing, beautiful, frustrating, hair-pulling, pain-in-the-ass projects I've ever done. And I love every minute of it. A lot of things I don't factor into the boat build for time-wise. I don't factor in any of the time it takes me sourcing materials, finding who has materials, researching online, making phone calls, driving to and from suppliers for my wood or my hardware. I don't add any of that time sourcing materials or research or planning. None of that time goes into the hours of the boat, and there's a lot of it. So the hours that you see me, you know, posting every month, Those are actual in the garage working on the boat hours. But there's a lot of behind the scenes hours that don't get tallied in, that aren't work specifically, but they are research and, you know, things like that. Another thing that doesn't get added into the boat for time-wise are these videos. I don't add the time that it takes to make them. There's 40 some videos, roughly 20 minutes apart. There's probably 12, 13 hours of video time that I don't add into the total. That doesn't include, of course, editing the videos, rendering them into a new format, MP4, so that YouTube likes the format when I upload it. That doesn't include upload times, which on average a 20-minute video takes me about 3 to 5 hours to upload because my internet's slow. So there's a whole bunch of behind the scenes time that doesn't get added into these videos because honestly it's not directly hands-on work. When I report my hours for the month, that is hands-on in the garage work. So anyhow, here's a 3-year update. Still having fun, still loving every minute of it. It is such an enjoyable project, and I encourage every one of you out there that even has the slightest inclination, maybe I'd like to build a boat, do it. You will not regret it. It will be by far the most satisfying and enjoying project of your life. That's a promise. So 3 years in, I have no idea how long it's going to take me to finish. Hopefully this summer, that's my goal. Maybe a few months into winter, who knows, but I'm trying to get it on the water this summer. So thank you for watching. Thank you for all your comments and your kind words and your support. Your thumbs up, your likes on the video. You guys are fantastic. Again, you're the reason I keep making these videos. 3 years? Hopefully not 4. We'll catch you on the next update.